Hi. Todd, can you hear me? Do you see the link? Okay, here's the link. I'm inviting it. Copy to clipboard. Copied. Edit. Paste. It should be right there, but I'm going to paste it in two parts. So it's https streamyard.com, and then the second part of it is streamyard.com/, and that's the second part. I don't know why it doesn't show. So streamyard.com/8U6UR25QEX. See if that works for ya. There's Todd Merrill.
I hope. All right, that seems to be working.
It is. I can see you.
Well, lovely. Hello.
Okay. Now what you have to do is turn off the YouTube or mute the YouTube thing so we don't have an echo.
Gotcha. I can close it entirely, right? I can close I can close YouTube entirely, correct?
Good. That's fine.
Well, I didn't even do it yet, but I currently have it open. Do you want me to close the app entirely?
Mute it or close it.
Yeah, I'll just close it. Okay. Yeah, I've yet to mute the app itself. Anyway, hello. Good to see your hands. Anyway.
Hi.
Hello.
Why do I still hear an echo?
That's strange.
Are you only viewing me on one device?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. Okay.
I was just starting to edit some settings in what appears to be, I'm in Firefox on my phone.
Okay.
Okay. And I was just, and you said that there was a problem with an echo, so I.
Yeah, I hear a delay and an echo.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you could put earphones in?
Yeah, I just closed the YouTube app, which should work. I know, but
I'm
still hear an echo, which makes no sense.
Do you have earphones you can plug in to your phone?
Maybe that's no.
No?
I've got. I mean, the problem is I've got a pair of good headphones, but they don't really
Match?
They don't. It doesn't go into the phone because of the case.
Okay.
I've yet to have. Yeah.
Let's do this then. I will be quiet. When you're talking. So see if you can aim your camera down to your
writing surface.
paper.
Yeah, I will in a sec. Let's see. I was trying to see if. Hold on. Just trying pages here. Aha. Here we go. I was just wondering if I can go to the settings. See, that's what's. On the page, but every time I do, it brings me to. Let me try this. Echo cancellation. Okay. Default audio. That should work.
Okay.
I don't know. Default. That's
Hello?
fine. Can you hear me?
I can. I don't hear an echo.
You don't really?
Much.
Interesting. Much. Okay.
Now I'm hearing it again. Anyway, aim your camera down.
I just want to see if that's doing anything. It's not. Okay. Can I? Well, I wanted to use the back.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that, but the thing is, I can't see anything. The screen. I mean,
okay. I think what you have to do is exit this.
Right.
And then when you're signing up, have the camera using already set to the back camera.
Okay, we'll do. Let me try that.
Okay.
I'm a tech guy, and this isn't working, and I can't figure this out.
Oh dear.
That's what bothers me. I worked at an ISP for years.
Okay.
But people, I guess, want to do things, configure things. What's the camera? It doesn't have any settings. It just doesn't allow me to have any settings, which is really strange. I'm clicking on the settings in the app, on the web. And
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing what it's doing. But it's not working very well.
You know, it isn't. And the thing is, we got this to work when I was totally exhausted and I'd been
Yeah.
up all. And any recollection of what we did that was so?
I honestly don't know. I know it took a while to make it work, but there was a way where you did do it, it seemed, because you were looking down at your device. Did you use an iPad?
I do not have it. Oh, ooh! I'm so excited.
Hello, everyone. I don't know who's in the room at the moment, but it's okay.
Mute the.
Looks like it worked.
Yeah, I had to unmute the mic first. I had to restart the phone. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, I hear a little bit of an echo, but that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so.
All right. But
can you see my hand?
I certainly can.
Okay, this is what I'm going to do. When I point to you,
right.
Am I pointing to you?
I think you are.
Then that's time for you to talk.
Okay.
So we don't have echoes. So I will introduce you. This is my co-star on the program tonight is Todd Merrill, who is a musician, composer, and flexible fountain pen nibbed fan, and has a Facebook page about flexible nib pens. And what else can I tell you? I don't know. Your turn.
My turn to say something cogent and entertaining and meaningful. Well, it's good to see you. Well, to see your hand anyway.
It's good to see you too. Talk a little louder.
Okay. All right. I think that's louder. Is that louder? Is that noticeably louder? Is that any good?
I think you can go louder still.
And I'm wondering if does that do anything to kind of zoom in at all or not? It didn't, did it? It didn't zoom in. I'm curious. How odd.
Just
do you know if there's any way to, I'm sorry. Do you know if there's any way to move to zoom in at all when we're in this session? Or
I'm gonna see if I can take me off the screen and maybe you'll be big. Maybe. Let me see if that works.
There's a way to. Let's see if that'll do anything.
Okay, that didn't really help.
No.
Anyway, I tell you what, just talk about why you like the pens you like.
Okay, I guess I'll have to do that.
But talk loud.
Yeah. Okay. This is very curious technology. It's just so funny that it's not. Do you see? You see everything here?
Yeah.
Is that see? All right. Well, I don't know. I think I'm drawn to much the same sort of thing that you are. I mean, it's funny. We have a semi-similar history. Although I didn't get an entire fountain pen store in the 80s, but I did discover these things in the 80s. And here's that wall that I'm so crazy about. I don't know if you can actually see this.
I see.
Not a surprise. Hey, you might appreciate this. It's actually got an engraving on it.
Oh, nice.
Let's see this.
Thumbs up.
J. Fred McCaleb or something. I don't know if you can even see that. Why do I like this? Well, yeah, the same reason you do. I mean, when I was in junior high, we in my art class we discovered the joy of dip pens, but I hated it. Unfortunately, well, it was steel. It was there. You can see it. What was so frustrating? I mean, there were just several things that were frustrating about it for me. I mean, and I realized that, of course, it takes some time to develop some technique with it, but I just found them incredibly scratchy. If you were even very careful on an upstroke, you'd end up getting spatters of ink everywhere, and it sounded and felt like nails on a chalkboard, and you had to keep dipping it. And I wasn't terribly fond of the experience. I just hated it. I liked what you could do with it, but I just didn't like doing it. It just felt awful. And then a few years went by, and I was in high school, and I'd fallen in love with the 1920s, and I was reading magazines from the period, National Geographic and Life magazines and that sort of thing. And of course, the advertisements were phenomenal. They bragged about these amazing pens, and the Duofold's got a 25-year warranty, and the shapers that have lifetime warranties and so forth. And I thought, well, are these things any good? Because I was already jaded by that time. I couldn't believe in a damn thing that anybody was making. Everything was it was Reagan. Everything was a lie. It was just
yes,
it was terrible. So and the whole idea of American exceptionalism seemed like an absolute joke to me. So I was reading these things, and I said, fine, put your money where your mouth is, right? Are you any good after all? And so I went to the Woodbury Teak Mart, which was an antique flea market. And wouldn't you know it, they had a 1928 Parker Duofold Jr. in jade for sale for $25. So I said, hey, I'll pick this up. We'll see how this goes. And I brought it to, trying to remember if it was like a stationery store in Waterbury, a couple towns away from me. And they cleaned it up and put a new sack in it, and oh my God, I'll be damned. This is great. It required no effort at all to write, unlike with a ballpoint where your hand is worn out in 20 seconds, of writing. And I really fell in love with them, but I didn't have the experience of a flexible nib yet, and that wasn't until years later. In fact, I'd used vintage fountain pens for the rest of the 80s, from like 1983 to 1990, and then a friend read my diary, and it was a big mess. It was a big nightmare. Yeah, exactly. It created a catacomb. I'm sorry?
Was your friend involved in the diary?
It was a tangled web. Let's put it that
Okay,
way.
I won't go into the details.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was more than one person. It was a mess. So, and I just said, oh, forget it. And I just kind of put everything away, and I ended up moving to Chicago, and, got involved in the electronic music scene, and what else happened? Oh, and the internet, the internet happened, so years and years went by, and then I think in 2016, it was only 4 years ago, I'd had absolutely enough of these terrible, Staples ballpoint pens that we had at work. They kept breaking on me. I always like a satisfying line. And in order to get a satisfying line from a ballpoint, you really have to press down. You can't just write lightly. And so over time, the crappy sections that they have crack. And then the whatever the heck it is, the bit that has the ball that holds the ink and everything, that just starts flopping around everywhere. And I said, I've had it. That's it. I'm going to get a fountain pen. I remembered liking them. They were wonderful, weren't they? And then, I just went nuts researching stuff and looking things up. And then I stumbled across you, and I was like, oh my God, it's so strange to see that in many ways you'd had, a parallel experience, 40 years ago, being surrounded by all these, wonderful vintage things, and having had a much more fortunate experience in terms of acquiring them. I couldn't believe that you actually ended up with an entire store. Dad, I'll pay you back, but there's a store I'd like to buy for $10K. What do you say?
It was $8,500.
Oh, okay. Well, you talked them down, or
No, that was the price. I borrowed
okay.
$5,000 from my father.
That's reasonable, sort of.
I think
it actually is, though, in hindsight, But yeah. So I mean, it was just but that's what kind of got me into it. It was just it was a time. It was something I could believe in. Things were beautifully made. They had tremendous style. And you felt that this whole, American exceptionalism idea was actually, it had some truth to it once upon a time. It was hype in the 80s. It was a bunch of garbage. There was nothing that I really believed in at that time. All the music I listened to was from England. It was, new romantic and new wave stuff from England, and that sort of thing. And the Beatles and.
Can you hold your notebook close to the camera right now? It's I just would like to see the degree of sort of flourish. So for almost every word you write, there's a flourish underneath it. Is that how you normally write?
Well, not really. I mean, it's a little bit tricky. You've got to admit, it is difficult talking about one thing and writing another, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
To be honest with you, and I do appreciate something that you'd said a long time ago, which was it really is hard. When you're playing with these things, it's hard to write, just write.
Yeah.
You want to exploit.
It's hard to just go to the grocery store in your Maserati you have to go on the highway and you have to go around sharp corners at 900 miles an hour, going, to pick up some milk and peanut butter just is not right. But I know that you do write things that involve more words than one, and maybe they don't have flourishes. Do you have a pen that maybe you use for non-flexible stuff? Do you have something like a 51 that you save for that purpose, or
Well,
it
not
doesn't look
really.
like you do? No.
Well, I don't have one now.
Well,
By the way, I thought. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say one thing briefly. It's funny, when I first got this pen, I thought the cap didn't fit.
yeah,
I thought, oh God, I think it's out of round or something, and no, it's not. It's so perfect that it's hard to push on.
yeah. When they're brand new, they're almost perfect. They NASA should have that degree of exactitude.
Right. Well, that's what I love about these. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was also going to say, with the exception of where they put the fucking gold seal, they never did anything the same twice. But so you also like quite, I think, more than other things, you tend to like the gold fill pens like this one. This is a Carter Super Right pen, but you love the wall metal pens.
Well, part of it, it's a combination of things. It's not that I just say I've got to own every single one that was ever made or anything. It's a lot of it is there were a lot of pens that I've really wanted in the 80s that I could never find.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. I said, I saw some ads for it, gorgeous, and that, I started in 1983, and I think the hobby was just starting to really kind of get rolling. Then, I mean, you had people a handful of people in the 70s, I guess, who were doing it. But I mean, I was all alone in this. I mean, I don't know about you, but I had no, I really had no friends who were into it. I collected antiques, the ones that I could find. I had been doing some drawing. I'd been doing some drafting for my father. I almost went to art school, but music was what had called me loudly. And so, fountain pens for me or vintage ones anyways, just sort of combined a lot of things that interested me. And of course, writing and, poetry and that sort of thing. And so I saw, a bunch of these ads and I thought, okay, yeah, this, all right, you're saying this is such a great pen. Let's see if it's any good. And one of the ones that I wanted was a wall, and I just never saw any in the wild. And years went by, and it's funny. I noticed it seemed like when I had money to buy a pen, I couldn't find the ones that I wanted. And when I found the ones I wanted, I didn't have the money to buy them.
Well,
and a lot of
have that money in a cookie jar and save it for that emergency.
Right. And then all of a sudden, it's like I really wanted a Waterman's 55. I couldn't find one anywhere. And then all of a sudden I found they just showed up and I ended up with 3 of them, And that's sort of what happened with the wall all metal pens. But I just think they're really incredibly attractive. They have this beautiful mix of being super precise, machined, and engineered devices on the one hand, but they have the hand finishing on them, especially the nibs. There's just all this. Let's make sure that that feed is really set right. It's the right, the ink channels are the right depth for the amount of flex that this nib has, and so forth. They really cared about what they were making. And I agree with you. It's fascinating that something that's that small, when posted, really becomes. Hey, it's a full-size pen, That's part of what's kind of neat about the Duofold Junior too.
Yeah. And you are a poster.
Well, if the pen demands it, right. Like here's a 55. You asked earlier if I had a 51 or something. The closest thing I've got, this is a great pen. We did that video that years ago that didn't quite work out because partly because we were having technical difficulties, sound familiar. But it was also so damn hot and humid in my apartment that the thing was just burping. It's such a shame, but yeah, here it is. For some reason, it seems to be fading a bit up here. I don't know what's
Well,
going
that
on. That
helps.
happened.
That happens when it's hot and humid. So what is that? That's
Yeah, it's a
a,
55.
a
Waterman's
Waterman
55.
55. Okay.
Yeah. Although the fade, this just happened. It started happening in like November or December.
Okay.
It wasn't like the humidity just didn't seem to do anything. I don't know what's going on. But this is about the closest I think that I've got to a pen that I don't flex.
Okay.
It's an oblique italic, and it's not filled, but I'm gonna dip it now in some ancient copper. I've got only a handful of ink that I really like. If I can open this, oh, that could be a problem. That could be a problem. Let me see if I can open this up. But I dedicate an ink to a pen because I don't want to sit there filling these things out for one thing. The other
Yeah.
thing, and I also like.
If
Go
I
ahead.
know that I'm not gonna lug a pen around with me outside, and I'm sitting at my desk, I'll just dip it, and
Yeah.
um, because at the end of any given week, I'll have 20 pens that I've filled with ink, and then I forget about them and put them away, and then the sack gets bad or something. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm just gonna cheat and dip this. But anyway, but this thing's great, and it's really wet, but it's so weird because it's such a dream to write with. But when it was that hot and humid, it was just kind of going splat everywhere. Let's see if this.
you said that has a stub nib or something.
It's a slightly an oblique italic.
Okay.
And it's not super pronounced, but it's noticeable.
Okay.
And they're a lot of fun. It's funny that you are really not a stub person, but you've
No, I like them. I just don't like doing I like writing cursive with a stub. I don't like doing, um, fractor and all that kind of stuff with a stub.
This is a fun one.
Did you?
I should have
Did
brought
you? The Did you see the earlier thing I did with Ritwidge, the poet from India?
I did not, although I saw
Today?
that it had done it. I thought, oh, that looks interesting, but
Well, it
I
was
was busy.
earlier today. You should look at how he completely fills up his notebook. It's just he uses a big fat Mont Blanc with a big fat Mont Blanc nib that lets out a gallon and a mile, and he just loves making a big mark on a page. Except his writing is rather small, so it was really amazing to look at. So take a look at it. It's the one that's talking with a poet, and
Right.
I think you'll get a kick out of looking at his writing. Now he doesn't do a flourish to save his life. At least I haven't seen any. It's all relatively straightforward lettering, and there's another guy that I've been talked to last week, and his name is JP or PJ or JM or something. I forget what that was, but he's a journal keeper, and he is really fun lettering as well. It's almost like yours, except he prints the entire time. I mean, they're swashbuckly capital letters that are sort of long, fatter and long and wider than tall. And I think you'd get a kick out of them. You're sort of speaking kind of the same language, except he's printing in your script.
Although I do my sort of deco architectonic writing too.
Yeah.
I alternate between.
Yeah. Well, his is more the deco architectonic kind than your script, but again, I'm just fascinated by all of by all the different kind of handwriting, and
Isn't it amazing? That's part of the allure for me too.
mhm.
It's all these old stories, but our next door neighbor, they were actually friends of the family, but she was an antique dealer and she had a bunch of stuff in her house, and she had these personal effects of this German man, including his passport. I'm trying to remember what his name was, what his last name was. It'll come to me. But anyway, and it was just a bunch of it was like letters and correspondence
Uh-huh.
and identification and that sort of thing. And it was just amazing because you saw his handwriting and you're like, oh, look at
Yeah.
that, it's gorgeous. And part of what I thought was so wonderful about it is, well, have you ever seen how Minnesota this is? Uh, F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing, his handwriting,
I
especially in the 20s.
haven't. I don't remember seeing it, but doesn't mean that I hadn't seen something somewhere.
I found
Yeah, I
one
remember
really
you
good
sent
example.
you sent me something with his handwriting.
Oh, did I? Yeah, I
Yeah,
know I posted it in my group, the Vintage
maybe
Flex
that's
font
where I
pens.
saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a good one. And yeah, I believe it was from 1922.
Mhm.
And it's got it all for me. That's exactly the sort of thing I like, where it's a Gesamtkunstwerk. It's a complete artwork.
Mhm.
It's a bit calligraphic. Whoop, that's a really bad C. What am I doing? I haven't written in ages. I've been through a bunch of stuff, so that's why I'm taking so long to get going. But it's just, yeah, it's very personal. It's very much his style, but it is somewhat calligraphic,
Uh-huh.
and uh, it's got tremendous line variation,
Yeah.
tons of character, and he's writing something. It may be a short note, you know, dearest whoever.
Yeah.
It may be a manuscript. It may be a monograph. It may be a recipe. It may be directions that he had written on the back of an envelope.
Yeah.
As I've done. But it's got tons of character, and I love that. I love that meeting place of all those different things, and that's what I like about part of what I love about the pens too. I do like the history of the actual design. Like these people. It was a time when business wasn't entirely evil. It
Right.
was on the way to getting there, but it
Yep.
wasn't completely evil yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They actually there was a time when these things were new and people said, okay, why the hell am I going to give you $5 or $7 for this thing
Yeah.
when I could get a lifetime supply of steel nibs for that amount?
Yeah.
And they work just fine. Why on earth do I need that? So they had to justify it. They had to come up with a reason. They had to make something that was really good. And the
And
thing
would
is, they
last
didn't even know that. Go
it would
ahead.
last as long as $5 worth of nibs would last. So they could say our pen will last
Right.
longer than 18 gross of Gillot number twos or whatever they wanted. So um, no, I think it's really when you see a pen that was built to last for 100 years or a lifetime. If you see a pocket watch that was made that was meant to last and to be given to your son and grandson and everything, um, they built it that way. The problem
Absolutely.
with many of these things is they were built. Look at how nice that is. They were built um, to the decorative elements of these pens were built to to um, reflect the decoration of the day. So Art Deco, came and went, and Art Nouveau came and went, and machine age stuff came and went, and seeing a pocket watch that has bric-a-brac and flowers and little checkerboards and zigzags in typical Gothic um, patterns, of course they're going to look old-fashioned in about a decade. And of course you won't want to wear that, because now you can wear uh, your Art Deco watch. So the watch is still just as good. So
Right. I mean, that's something too that whenever I talk to God, I now I'm feeling old, but whenever I talk to somebody who's a millennial, God forbid, or whatever, I don't see much of a difference between 2001 and 2021, to be honest with you. There's just not a lot of difference, at least in terms of aesthetics.
but they would point out the difference between an iPhone 2 and an iPhone 10, because it can
Exactly.
and they'll know it has this processor or that processor. They can play Angry Birds a lot faster, or whatever the fuck it is. The camera's a lot better. Yeah, but it's still gonna take pictures, ugly photographs, because you don't know how to take a goddamn picture. So don't think the camera's gonna be better.
Though it's faster, though it's smaller or bigger, it's got better specs. Okay,
Yeah.
it's still you didn't change the world. You didn't they love disruption. Oh, we want to be the disruptors, right? Like they've invented something. What the heck did they really invent? That's part of what I love about the 20s so much too, is that when I was starting to get into the period, it was just long enough ago then, and certainly now, even more so, that it really feels foreign. It feels far away and distant. Yet they had a lot of the things that we take for granted. They had automobiles. They had the phone.
Indoor
they
plumbing. They had indoor plumbing.
They had the light bulb, but they also they had the phonograph, the radio. They had, believe it or not, they had very primitive fax machines. They had all sorts of things that they had vacuum cleaners and fans and it was the first consumer culture.
But they also had steamer trunks and clothes that you would bring with you to dress for dinner. And the reason that they still had that was there was enough cheap labor to lug them around with you when you went on the ocean liner. If we were lucky enough to be in the upper middle class, or in the upper class, nobility or something, that would be great. But most of us we had one shirt collar that we'd wear on Sunday, and we'd have one bath we'd have on Saturday night. And so all in all, I think we're probably better off now than we were back then, as long as we can still pretend.
Well, that's the beauty of this. It's funny. I remember not that long ago, I went to an antique shop in Sturbridge, because there were so many antique shops there. You can still find some good stuff there. And I got into a big conversation with a woman who's maybe my mother's age.
The proprietrix of the place.
Right. That's hard to say, proprietor. And he said to me, "Oh, you were born in the wrong era. You were born at the wrong time." And they always do that. And I said, "You know what? No, I wasn't. I was born at the perfect time, because I can still get hold of these wonderful old things and play with them. And if I need to have a dental work done, if I need to have a crown done, right, I can get it done. It exists. Yes. If I need that hernia operation, which I actually sadly needed for some reason, I'll survive."
Yes. Without leeches applied, and without having to bite a bullet because you don't have anesthesiologist on hand.
Yeah, I don't have an anesthetist.
See, I mean, that word right there is from very 20s-ish, and they use it now for Executrix. I think that's really the only time you see it these days. And even that is pretty rare. But Aviatrix and Executrix and an
Dominatrix, of course. That's probably about the only one.
What's the word we were talking about? Where you need an anesthetic, anesthesiatrix. Anyway,
anesthetist, but
anesthetrix.
Yeah,
There's way too many. There's way too many ths in that. I know there's only one, but that's too many.
No wonder we're having a hard time saying this. Anesthetrix. You have to write it out. Anesthetrix.
Anesthetrix. It's STH is hard to do.
Sometimes this language makes no sense.
Yeah, we suck. So, anesthesiologist is Ms. Marilyn, the doctor in the chat, is telling us what it is. Yes, I know, but we're having fun with the English language. Ms. Marilyn, they call him the Sandman. The Sandman. Bring the Sandman in.
I'm afraid that my really cute little Schaefer there, which I am amazed to see that I even have, because it has a flexible. That's a hoop. Is I think it's drying out. I think I'm running out of ink.
Oh dear.
I'm gonna have to dip. Oh dear. This wall is good and easy though. That's still happening. But I was gonna say I had to have this shaver because I was like, I loved their ads in the 1920s. I don't know if you remember them or not, but they have these unbelievably elaborate filigree.
Well, I know of them. I don't remember them from the time, but yes, I do know of them.
I know that. You're only 10 years older than I am, or 9.
Yeah, well, neither one of us were around in the 1920s, but yes, I do love them. They were beautifully drawn with, usually the co-ed and her fiance, her sweetheart, and they're sitting there in the library, and he's writing with his Schaefer, and he's holding her Schaefer and looking in his eyes as he's looking down at his work, and you can just see the romance budding. And the typeface was good. Everything about him was good. The ones that I don't like, pen ads, are the ones where it does look like it's a page out of the Sears and Roebuck catalog, where they just have a bunch of them lined up next to each other. Because there's no romance in that. There's just, yes, it shows you what colors they came in and what sizes, but I prefer them to be part of one or two pens as part of a scene. Rob Morrison talked about an ad that he liked where it was an early ad for the Waterman with the clip cap, because the clips were kind of new back then. And it implied that you could easily and safely take this out with you everywhere. So rather than just showing, the banker on his way to the bank in the backseat of his Duesenberg or anything, it showed this guy in a canoe wearing a hunter's vest and dragging a moose he just shot up into the canoe. I don't know how that was going to work. But you see him, in this jungle scene with this canoe, and it's all beautifully crosshatch rendering, like it was part of a, Robert Louis Stevenson story. And then in the pocket is this little Waterman clip cap, and you can kill moose with this pen. So those are the ads I like.
You can kill a moose with this pen.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, yeah, when I was talking about the Schaefer ads, I wasn't even well, I wasn't even talking about that. What I remember, uh, apart from the fact that it was like the earliest Lifetime ads, was they had this incredibly elaborate big S Schaefer
Yeah,
S.
yeah, that's what I was
What the
trying to
whole
draw here. But yes, the big S.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was. And if you look at it, I'm trying to remember which one it was. Oh, what it was? It was like Aragones or something like that. It was one of the illustrators for Mad Magazine,
Oh,
and
okay.
he used to do these unbelievably tiny little drawings of these, like on the edges and on the borders of the page. It'd be like a guy shooting a moose, for instance, right? And then he's driving down the highway, and it's like this whole scene, but it would he'd have it illustrated like in the periphery,
Yeah,
in the
uh-huh.
margin of the
Yeah,
page, right? It was tiny, tiny little
yeah. I
drawings,
love.
and
I, um,
yeah, and that's what the Schaefer's S was. It was composed of this tiny, tiny little filigree, these extremely elaborate.
yeah, yeah. It
But it was,
was it was this line drawing of a filigree that looked like it was the filigree from a Sullivan building, elevator grate or something. Just went on and on and on, and
yeah,
so
just gorgeous, and I really,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that to me, that's my favorite period. That's my favorite deco. People think of deco, they think of the big blocky geometric stuff from the 30s, especially the
Hmm. Yeah.
30s, and then they conflate it with modern, in the 40s and even in the early 50s. I had a 1953 Mercury Monterey, believe it or not, for a few
Okay.
years. Uh, and that thing had the coolest speedometer in the world, and it had that sort of leftover modern look. So
Uh-huh.
to the uninitiated, you say, "Oh, no, that's so Art Deco," and I'm like, "Well, not really,
No,
though."
no, no. It's not Art Deco. Art Deco is this.
The early Art Deco is what I'm talking about, and it's kind of a transitional style where
Hmm. Yeah,
what
it
you do is
almost seems more like it's arts and crafts. It has that in it as well, because it was
yeah,
really
yeah,
beautifully
it's
handmade
right.
and with lots of beautiful detail, yet it still had a slight hard, edgy, geometric feel to it
Mhm.
as well. But it was more, it wasn't the machine agey looking stuff that you often think of when you think of Art Deco. So
In a way, it kind of remind. I know what you're saying with crafts. I'm thinking of something like East Lake, for example, where
yeah,
you take those floral forms,
yeah,
those tree forms and maple leaves and that sort of thing, and then you compress it into border,
yeah,
a geometric
uh-huh,
linear shape that forms part of a border. So you look at something like Frank Lloyd Wright,
yeah, yeah. I
where
mean,
you're
all of
starting to
that
get that.
stuff. The what's the guy that did the wallpaper and the fabric design? William
Morris,
Morris.
love
Yeah,
him.
William
That's
Morris, and
a wallpaper on my phone.
yeah,
William,
William Morris, and then you have people like uh, Eric Gill, and it was just the love of taking a moment to make something that's beautiful and designed without having it to be fancy. Now, uh, William Morris is pretty fancy, but
it is fancy, but it's controlled. It's not Dionysian. It's that balance,
yeah,
right? You've got
like Sullivan's stuff is like
yeah,
way overgrown, except it's in these very confined shapes. So it's not messy or naturalistic. It's sort of, but it's just
or
full of fun detail and stylized flowers and
Right.
leaves and vines and stuff.
It
So
never quite makes it self-indulgent. It has just enough composure and restraint, and it's just composed enough that it doesn't run away from itself. And that's I had a dream. This is so funny. It was a couple of years ago, and I just got sucked into this, like, the vintage flex thing,
uh-huh.
and dream was absolutely hilarious. Do you know his banks, his jewel box banks?
No. And who is
Oh
this?
my
I'm sorry.
God, Louis Sullivan.
Okay.
They're absolutely stunning. There's
Okay.
one in what the hell is I think it's Grinnell, Iowa. They're in the
Okay.
weirdest place, tiny little towns in the
Oh, the
Midwest.
banks. Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I'm sorry. I was
yeah.
thinking of a bank you put your pennies in your bedroom,
Oh,
not an actual bank. Okay.
they're a
Okay.
little bigger than that, but
They're a little
not
bigger.
much.
Okay.
A little bit. But they've got it
No,
all, right?
they are amazing, and how they
Gorgeous.
could get how they had the money to pay him. Of course, they were a bank, but they were probably part of a larger bank.
Well, or they were. The thing is, they weren't like, it wasn't like, Bank of America. But although Bank of America is older than you may realize, I didn't realize it was as old as it really is. But even still, yeah, they had the resources. And the thing is, by that time, Sullivan had kind of lost his currency,
It's mojo.
or not even so much that. It just wasn't. He was old. He was old fashioned by then.
Yeah,
You
by
know.
then. Yeah.
So he had to find work where he could. And that's what he did. But I think it's his greatest work, and there isn't much of it. But he did so much. Again, it's a lot of what I find really interesting aesthetically in music and in visual arts is reconciliation, the reconciliation of opposing elements, and a kind of
Uh-huh.
dynamic balance. So you find that with these banks, they're, on the one hand, they're massive, they're chunky, solid blocks of bank, made out of these unbelievable materials. That's not going anywhere. Okay, it's built.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's brick and masonry and everything. But the thing is, they're kind of small. It's just a little bank. It's just a little branch building. It's only one story, but it's a hell of a story. It's got 20-foot ceilings, but it's
Yeah.
not enough to be a 2-story building.
They
And
just wanted it to be Bonnie and Clyde proof back then. They didn't, it didn't have to
right,
be a fortress just for these small town thieves and robbers.
right.
I am going to have dinner shortly, but let's try to figure out, Todd, how to do this again where your camera can be closer to the page. Because I think we
Yeah,
did
yeah.
before. Right now, your camera is what? Hanging by a, or what are you using what are you filming on?
It's hilarious. I mean,
Are you
the only
you
thing that
use
I could,
are
yeah,
you use
what I've done is I took a giant box of uh, just add water and put it in the
noodle?
microwave,
Yeah.
Japanese noodles, and drilled a hole through it and put it,
Okay.
some
But
underwear in the hole was too big,
okay.
and it's a
Here-
cookie stick. And,
What is the device you're using?
the camera itself,
Yeah,
it's my phone. It's my
it's the phone. Okay.
it's a
Okay.
smartphone.
Well, if you turn the big ass box you have on the side, so maybe it's not so tall, that is a way to maybe do it next time.
Well,
Uh,
that's that might work. The way that I've generally done it is I just zoom in. I just zoom
yeah, yeah,
in. The
yeah. You
problem is
can
I'm not able.
normally, but I don't think you can here. What I'm going to do, Todd, is send you a really easy way to make a iPhone or flat phone, whatever you have, um, holder out of two hangers and some duct tape. or any sort of tape and a rubber band, and you're all set. It's really a simple thing to make, and because you're using a wire hanger for its legs, the legs are easily sort of invisible, and
Right.
they're bendable,
Right.
so you can move it closer to the table or further up easily. So I'll show you how it's done, and I'll send it to you, because it really works well for me. Because it, you know, I knew what your handwriting was doing, but I think other people would have really enjoyed seeing how it looks.
Right.
So Will Hodges says thanks to you, Todd. Will Hodge is a journal keeper from Texas, and Miss Marilyn Darling enjoyed it, I think. I don't know who else is watching us, but I will be back tomorrow, I presume, at some point. Hopefully I can do the work tomorrow that I wanted to do today, but I got distracted. Anyway, I love your notebooks there. They're just full of every single look at those paragraphs and exclamation point both. Lots of fun.
Lots of paragraphs.
Okay,
and hey, before you go, how was Minnesota? Right in Minnesota for me. How is it out there?
We're dealing with my father's estate, trying to slowly figure out what to do.
Right.
Now that COVID is kind of ending, we can figure out more easily, I think, how to sell some of these things that we've inherited and try to figure out what to do with the house itself. So anyway, will you all be good? Thanks, Todd. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.